Right, so Paul Rietzel, very much the aggro player. He's into the Hall of Fame. And of course, Makihita Mahara, the 2006 world champion, is up there as well. So congratulations to all three of them. But on screen, you are looking at Jackson Cunningham, who is now tied at 1-1 against Pierre Mondon of the United States of America. White-green aggro against Jump Planeswalkers. Luis, how big an advantage with the aggro deck is getting to go first?
Unsurprisingly, it's a pretty big one.
Yep.
Being able to have multiple creatures in play before a Planeswalker comes out is huge, especially since Planeswalkers are one of the cards that punish you the most for being on the draw. When you're on the, it used to be like in control mirrors, sometimes you choose to draw. Now that there are Planeswalkers, that's really not advisable. So I think that the die roll here, or in this case, getting to choose player draw, is in fact really, really big.
Something that you said earlier in the match, you said that Courser of Crufix was a really big deal, not so much because of the words on the card, but actually just because it was sitting there blocking with 4 toughness, and there you see Courser of Crufix on your screen, the rare enchantment creature from Born of the Gods.
This was the most dominant, or one of the most played cards at the previous Pro Tour. Right? I mean, we saw...
Well, there were 28 Coursers of Crufix and 28 Sylvan Caryatids in the top 8 of the Pro Tour Atlanta.
But, do you feel like Courser of... Like, Sylvan Caryatid's obviously very good, but would there have been 28 Sylvan Caryatids without Courser of Crufix being printed?
They both are part of kind of the same synergistic engine. They both... the turn 2 Caryatid, turn 3 Courser play a land is just such a huge play that I think that they both kind of feed into each other's popularity.
Yeah, and that middle thing it says there on the graphics, ability to play lands from the top of your library helps generate card advantage, improves quality of drawn cards. I was sort of going to ask, well, is there one side of that that's more important? But again, it is just this synergistic package that makes Corsa such a great card.
Oh, we just watched Mondon, just like, okay, here's a land off the top of my deck as opposed to playing something out of my hand. And it gets, especially with Scrylands in the format, that ability to sort of push and, sort of sift through your draws so that there's always a spell waiting for you when you draw for your draw step.
Yeah, even if Courser just by itself would increase the quality of your draw step by making it so you can only draw lands when you hit multiple in a row, Scrylands make that even more likely. So overall, it's a pretty big advantage as the game goes on.
Have you seen people, warping like towards enchantment removal or, any kind of concessions to this card when you guys were playtesting?
Certainly, you pick your removal with it in mind. I mean, without Courser running around, Bile Blight would have been just a much better removal spell than it already is, and it is already very good. And I think once Khans of Tarkir comes out, we're going to see a lot of Coursers of Crufix. I would imagine that we're going to see cards that interact favorably against it as well, because R&D is very aware of how good Courser is. The Block Pro Tour definitely showed us that.
So you're saying there's going to be a Planeswalker that says kill target 2/4 creature?
Yeah, it's probably not quite that on the nose, but something along those lines.
Just any toughness between 3.9 and 4.1. Thank you. All right. So Jackson Cunningham there on the left of your screen, Pierre Mondon on the right. Mondon took a little break just to clear his head after game 2. Comes back to what is a very large and pretty lonely stage once you get down to just the one table, but you've still got plenty of people around, judges, camera crew, the spotters giving us the hands. You see the iPads there, Rashad Miller, one of the judges there, DLS, Dave Lyford-Smith, bringing you all the cards in hand for our 2 players as they prepare for potentially a life-changing single game of Magic, because one of them will be done for the weekend, and one of them we will be seeing again in a best 3 out of 5 final against Even Flock of the Slovak Republic. I was tempted to ironically call Flock King of the Red Zone, but it would be ironic because Flock is on blue-white control, and although we have seen him attack with lots and lots of creatures, they were all based off a young Pyromancer earlier on. Hello everyone out on the main floor, lots of Pro Tour players we see there gearing up for the deciding game, and lots of people busy playing in the background as well. Sundays are sort of a very relaxed feel out in the hall because of course we've only got the last 8 who are with their lives on the line.
Well, sure, I mean, just like us, we're completely relaxed on Sunday morning.
Super, it's true.
I've actually heard from Twitter that there's a 6-on-6 Homelands draft going on with, luminaries such as like Brock Parker, David Ochoa, and a number of other people I couldn't even quite tell.
But fantastic.
which, by the way, might be the only format that takes longer to play than a blue-white on blue-white mirror match.
We'll find out.
Rich, it was funny. I was talking to Craig Wesco.
All right.
We were talking backstage as we were getting ready to do a deck tech, and we were talking about sort of the feature match area, and he was talking about, how when you're the last match out there, we had seen some last match still waiting on the tables, and it was like, it could be pretty lonely out there when you're the last match, and he's like, well, even more so on Sunday, when it's just that one table out there, and then he paused for a second, and he was like, but it's the best kind of lonely.
Oh, that was wonderful, yes. Now, that was a pretty straightforward mulligan there by the looks of things for Jackson. He had 4 land, but no, not happy with that at all. Pierre-Christophe Mondon, you can see his hand there, and that looks a lot better. So
that was a confident smile for a second.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty good hand. I mean, Abrupt Decay, Caryatid, a couple lands. That's already a good start. So
yeah. And of course it makes a difference. You wouldn't be human if it didn't make a difference when you see your opponent mulligan in a deciding game. And that's where Jackson Cunningham is on the play right now.
And of course, if your opponent mulligans to 5, by the bylaws of Magic, you are obligated to pump the fist. It's just one of the rules. It's on the back of your DCI card when you sign up.
So I think this is going to be a downhill battle for Jackson Cunningham here. I just can't stop using that because Ben said that completely with unaware that is not exactly how it works, and so that's just how I say it now. But Mondon has 3 temples, Caryatid, Courser, the combo, and then 2 removal spells like Golgari Charm and a Magma Spray. So it's vulnerable to Loxodon Smiter, but other than that hand has got a lot going for it.
So Jackson Cunningham has had an astonishing run to make it here to the semi-final.
Has still not lost on Sunday yet.
Oh, yeah, and he's certainly not lost yet. I mean, he gets to play a game of Magic now, and this hand is actually a very ideal hand.
2 land. There's an Experiment 1 on turn 1, Voice of Resurgence 2, Fleece Main Line potentially on 3, Advent of the Worm potentially on 4. He's looking for a couple of land. He's got an awesome curve if he can get the land out there. Or he could be in the world of Experiment 1, Voice of Resurgence, and sit there. And we've already seen him sit there a bunch.
Yeah, I mean, the curve of Experiment 1 into Voice into Fleece Main is good enough to hold you over, even if you're stuck on 2 for a few turns. This is, I think if you asked Jackson to assemble a 6-card hand, it would look very similar to this.
So away we go. Experiment 1. More
maybe
room.
a Selesnya Charm.
Yeah, and Mondon's really looking for an untapped land, which he immediately finds with Blood Crypt.
No room for maneuver now. This one will decide who faces Even Flock in the final. Cunningham on the left, Mondon on the right. Here is turn 2 Voice. Counter on the Experiment 1. In it comes. Damage.
And there's no temptation to play the Fleece Main Lion there?
No, the biggest difference is you really want to evolve Experiment 1 up to a 3/3. So Mondon actually has an interesting decision here. He can play a Skyland and a Magma Spray. It looks like he's running Magma Spray onto Voice, which, while in general is pretty good, I think that's actually better for Cunningham here. I think he'd rather have that 3/3 Experiment 1 than a 2/2 Voice. So even though Mondon's hand was good this game, Cunningham's hand was actually perfect. So this could be a tough battle.
Cunningham, you see, Fleece Main Line, Banishing Light, Advent of the Worm, wants to see some lands at some point.
2 more lands and then never another land for the rest of the game.
Pretty much.
Yeah, if the green-white deck draws exactly 4 lands, it's a really good deck. I mean, it's a good deck without that, but that is the the perfect draw is exactly 4 lands, nothing else.
That's not a land, it's an Experiment 1. So with the 2 land that he has available, we'll see Fleece Main Line. Up we go to a 3/3 for the Experiment 1. In we go.
Here, drops to 15.
And Mondon's got to be somewhat regretting keeping this Magma Spray now. He's going to be able to Mortars the Fleece Main Lion, but this Magma Spray has not got a ton of utility. It will end up killing an Experiment 1 probably this game, the other one. So it's reasonable, but it still could be better.
What Jackson wouldn't give for some scry action right now to actually start getting the lands he needs. Goes to the bottom. Mondon doesn't like it. So, what is on the top of the deck for Jackson Cunningham right now?
Well, it looked like a Plains, yep.
Plains isn't terrible. It does mean that his next land really needs to be a forest, otherwise Advent's uncastable, and that would be a disaster. This Banishing Light is also gonna come into play, reasonably soon if a Courser of Krufix comes out. It's not the card Cunningham would have chosen to have, but it's still gonna have some utility.
2 experiments and 2 cards in hand for Cunningham. At the moment, just lands for Mondon, but a grip of cards. Also, only 12 life to play with.
I need to ask the judge a question. Yeah.
So Pierre's going to just step away from the table for a moment to talk to one of the judges. Just wants to check something.
Well, what he wants to check is going to work. He's going to what he wants to do is Magma Spray the 3/3 Experiment 1, and then cast a Golgari Charm. So at that point, Cunningham can remove the 2 counters to regenerate the Experiment 1, but then Golgari Charm does make it a 0/0.
Right.
And actually, it will still, if the Magma Spray resolves, if you remove the 2 counters, it just immediately dies anyway. So Mondon is actually, this is going to work out. He's going to be able to sweep Cunningham's board here. So Mondon's going to be in a pretty good shape after this. Cunningham might go ask the opposite side of that, which is, if my 3/3 has 2 damage on it, what happens if I remove the 2 counters? The answer would be that it would just immediately die before the regeneration resolves.
Okay.
Get -1/-1.
Everything -1/-1 from Golgari Charm.
So, checked on this round. Then ask again.
Sorry. Could we just confirm what's the exact question?
So he Magma Sprayed this, it resolved, then Golgari Charm. Can I regenerate?
What is the exactly you want to activate the regeneration
Well,
ability?
yes, you can.
You can activate the regeneration ability, yes.
Okay, so I'll.
I mean, regardless of this particular rules interaction, the Golgari Charm still kills it, even if
Yes.
it regenerated. So
Yes.
it's not hugely relevant.
Okay.
No, it's just you can't sort of explain to players how the rest of the turn's
Right.
going to play
Right.
out.
The judge can only answer your questions in a pretty straightforward yes or no fashion.
I mean,
Yeah.
Cunningham couldn't get around that no matter
No,
how he
no,
played
no.
it. So it was, a good play on Pierre's side and not much Cunningham could do on his side.
Golgari Charm doing the business once again.
This is brutal.
4th land, but
It's a Plains.
And pass. Pierre Mondon, he's 12-20 behind, but he's ahead where it really counts.
all right. Who had Jund Planeswalkers versus Blue-White on their scorecard for the finals matchup?
No, this is a reasonable. It's a reasonable matchup. I think this is not what even Flock would have chosen had he chosen which
No,
of
in
these 2
fact,
decks to battle.
I think he actively was rooting against Pierre Mondon.
Oh yeah, definitely. But that being said, I still think the Planar Cleansing version is much better than the Attention Sphere version in this matchup. So, of the blue-white decks he could be playing, he even has the correct build for this particular matchup. Slaughter Games is a tough card to beat, though.
Jackson will get rid of the Courser of Krufix, but will still not have a second green mana. And Pierre
Promptly.
have another go.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for Pierre to lose this game. It's possible, certainly, because of Advent is a powerful card, and Pierre does not have a direct answer to it, but given a few turns, Xenagos will actually answer it.
Elvish Mystic is on top of Mondon's deck. We know that via Courser of Krufix. Cunningham draws. It is still not a green mana. It's got a Loxodon Smiter.
It's not nothing.
Yeah, it's the elephant in Cunningham's hand.
Go.
Frank Karsten played green-white aggro as well, and he got one of his Loxodon Smiter's Thoughtseize this tournament, which did not work out well for his opponent.
No.
Excellent.
2 cards.
They just didn't see it coming.
They selected it. There was 3 different cards in Carson's hand, and they actively chose to take it. It's not even like, you Thoughtseize him and his 1 card is a Smiter.
At least that player's friends won't tease him about it for the rest of his life.
What weird friends.
Well, maybe he didn't tell them. I wouldn't power him.
All right, here is Xenaghost the Reveler.
7.
And we're going to see a haste creature. It's 2/2.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see it attack into.
And here's Elvish
It's
Mystic.
hastily getting put into play
Yeah.
and staying there. And while I think Banishing Light is a fine card to have in the green-white deck, even after board, this is not the kind of card green-white really needs. It wants a card to pressure their opponent. I mean, killing a Planeswalker or a Courser after it's done a little damage is really not how green-white's going to win the game here.
Pierre looking as confident as we've seen him look
I mean,
at this point.
assuming Cunningham ends up banishing lighting Xenaghost, we've got a Smiter attacking. It can get triple blocked, but then a Johnny's Presence makes it a 5/5 indestructible, killing like the Courser and the Mystic. Mondon's on all lands at that point, plus a Sylvan Caryatid in hand. This could come down to top decks with, Cunningham having an Advent in hand, so forests are live and all the creatures in his deck are live. This game is not over. I mean, the Banishing Lights, despite not being a card that puts pressure on, are still going to do some good work this game.
Here we go. Locks it in. Smiter comes at Xenaghost.
Mondon not with anything going on in hand. All his actions on board right now.
What's your block here, Luis? Do you just block with everything?
You're
Or do
worried
you
about
just-
Celestia Charm. You really don't want to block with Courser. But if you block with just the Satyr token and Celestia Charm happens, you end up getting Xenaghost killed because of Trample. There's no way to kill the Smiter through a Celestia Charm. You're drawing. You really need this Courser to stay alive. I would probably just put the Elvish Mystic on the Smiter.
That's a judge now.
Yeah.
Looks like a,
Another
a
moment.
judge call here.
Yeah.
Celestia Charm's a great card. I mean, it is going to make this decision difficult. I like just Mystic on the Smiter. But I think there's a good argument for just like triple block or double blocking. There's no real reason to triple block actually, since the Johnny's Presence doesn't let you kill the Smiter anyway. I think through a double. I think I would probably just block with the Mystic there. And then even if there's a Celestia Charm, next turn you can double block. I would, I guess, rather lose Mystic and Xenaghost the first time. That's tough. You could also double block Courser and Xenaghost token, and then Charm trades for both of them. Then next turn you make another token, and you're making a token every single turn. So maybe actually Courser token is actually the first best block, though my inclination would still probably just be to chump with Mystic, I think. I think chumping with Mystic is better than chumping with the 2/2. At this point, the 2/2 is much more valuable. Little does Pierre know that Xenaghost is leaving the battlefield one way or the other this turn.
All that thought.
So the real question is, which do you value more? Do you value Courser or Xenaghost more? What is the ability to draw less lands better than making a 2/2 every turn? I'm valuing Courser at slightly higher, plus this way next turn you get to double block, but I think chumping with Mystic or double blocking with the two power guys are basically the only two options you have here that I think make sense.
Mondon's decision just goes on and on and on.
The decisions like this are where Pro Tours are won or lost on.
These two.
Yeah.
This is actually going to work out a lot better for Mondon than I think he would have expected. Johnny's Presence is much worse than Celestia Charm in this particular instance,
This one, and
because you just don't lose the token here.
What'd you say?
I'll order it. So I'm
Ordering the
instead.
blockers.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Courser first.
Technically, it would have been done before the casting combat trick, but in this case, it doesn't actually matter.
And then Banishing Light takes out Xenaghost.
Yep, so we're on a 2/2 and a 1/1 versus a 4/4 with Advent on one side and a Scryland on the other side. This is actually coming to a close game. Mondon has more high-impact cards in his deck that he can draw, and he's getting the first crack at scrying. But
And he's going to get rid of the land that was there.
What are you at?
I'm at 20. You're at 14.
Sure.
If you say so. Mondon deciding whether he wants to raise. Sylvan Caryatid does give you a turn buffer. Basically, if Cunningham can rattle off Forest and then spell, all of which are advents, I think he's in great shape to win this game. If he just draws Forest and then maybe another land, he's still in pretty good shape. Advent is... I'd rather have Advent and being stuck on green than have, just no cards in hand and being, at the mercy of my draw step.
The Loxodon Smiter will attack. Sylvan Caryatid will get in the way. Are we about to have... No, we're not. It's going to be Experiment 1 and still just 1 green mana for Jackson Cunningham.
Pretty low impact card there.
Mondon draws. He's
I assume
into the top of his
gladly
deck.
trade it with a Mystic at this point.
Yeah. Looks like we've got a Vraska coming after a Loxodon Smiter.
There she is again. It'll be
That was a good draw.
middle ability. So it starts at 5 right now.
Yeah, and Mondon can put it to 6, but I think
Yeah.
just killing the Smiter, it is pretty good. He could have also killed a Banishing Light and gotten back a Xenagos.
Oh, wow.
I actually think I like that a little bit more, because then you can threaten the double block. Celestial Charm gets you worse, but at this point you can deduce that that Cunningham probably does not have a Celestial Charm in hand.
Again, Cunningham has been really hampered by his mana.
If he's considering attacking, you gonna bluff a Celestia Charm here?
No.
He drew. Unfortunately for Cunningham, he drew one of the worst cards in his deck. He drew a Boon Satyr, which was another double green
Right.
card.
Ugh.
So top deck wars end really quickly when one player draws something good.
Your turn.
Mondon
Vraska,
passes
yeah.
back.
Ticks up Vraska. So should that Experiment 1 decide to pick a fight?
Which it's probably not going to yet even. Fleecemane Lion's going to grow it to a 2/2, but
Sure.
trading for a Satyr token, I think you can do better. You can just wait till it becomes a 3/3.
So the possibility of monstrosity, it's still a mana away for Jackson Cunningham.
And I doubt Mondon's going to want to wait for him to draw that. I think if Mondon has 2 blanks in hand, he's going to want to just trade Vraska for the line while he still has the option. If he drew a removal spell, now would be a good time to use it. He could be concerned if he drew a removal spell about a Johnny's presence, but at this point there's not a whole lot you can put Cunningham on. He could also free Xenagos.
He did draw a removal spell.
So the plus side of using that one first is you get to tick up Vraska and not lose Vraska. The downside is if Jackson did have an Ajani's presence, you would not be able to use Vraska in response to the sorcery,
Right.
and the Fleecemane line could end up getting monstrous there. So that was slightly risky, but there aren't very many Ajani's presences left. There's only one left in
Right.
Cunningham's deck, so I think it's very reasonable not to worry about it.
All right, Vraska ticks up,
Your turn.
passes the turn, back to Cunningham.
Smiter, at least a playable draw. It puts his Experiment 1 up to a 3/3, which still just trades for potentially the 2 creatures that Mondon has in play. That
Right.
might not be bad.
All right, so you play Smiter, and then you attack with the 3/3 Experiment 1 into Vraska.
You could, and then you could deal 3 to Vraska, and then Vraska triggers, and then you regenerate Experiment 1.
Smiter, counter, turn it sideways. I'm coming towards Vraska, please.
So you get to deal 3 to Vraska and then regenerate, which you're trading 2 counters on Experiment 1 for 3 on Vraska, which is a very, it's a good deal when you have a Smiter in play. Mondon can double block and just trade, because you can't really regenerate there. You could regenerate, and then you're trading 2 counters for just Elvish Mystic, which is the same as chumping, but it just gives Cunningham the option of trading for both creatures or just the Mystic. I don't think you want to let Vraska get hit here, since you want Vraska to kill off the Loxodon Smiter. So I'd expect the Elvish Mystic to be dying here one way or the other.
Things getting super tight here in Game 3 of the semifinals, waiting for Ivan Flock to face the winner in the final.
And here the green-white deck, you can see it really needing Brushland, since Brushland would put it in good shape. Though, it looks like Mondon drew a forest this turn to go with another land. So in that case, you know, with Vraska killing Smiter, that leaves Experiment 1 ready to come over and either kill Vraska or the Satyr token. And then Cunningham's just a forest away from just running away with the game. So this is gonna come down to the wire.
Would you consider just killing the? Yeah, so
Yeah,
say the
I like
Banishing
doing that the first time, and I like doing that this time. I think that getting a Satyr every turn is going to be a lot better than just killing a Smiter.
For the Saturn.
So we have two 2/2s.
And if he can keep the Vraska around for another couple turns, he can unlock the Courser if he needs to eventually.
Yeah, with the Courser in play, you're not going to run into this, drawing lands nonsense. And there it is.
Boom. Forest.
Do you just attack all your guys in here?
At this point with a Boon Satyr, there's no blocks are bad for you. Pierre is at 14. You could just attack him with both, but I think I like attacking the Xenagos. You force the blocks a little more than if you attack Pierre directly.
Yes, so Experiment 1 will aim at Vraska, which would put Vraska gone. She would be utterly disloyal at that point. And then Pierre's going to offer up the trade of the 2-for-1, although of course they're both just tokens off Xenagos.
I like Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for the Smiter. And here's Boon Satyr.
I like splitting up the attack on Planeswalkers. That way, no matter what, Pierre's losing some permanence. Because if they both attack Xenagos, then Pierre could just no blocks, then Xenagos dies, and that's the whole attack.
Right.
At least now, either the Planeswalkers are going or the creatures are going. And actually,
Saturn.
Pierre's all of a sudden in very rough shape. I think
It's just been a succession of lands.
And the lands helped Cunningham a lot more. Drawing that second forest was basically like drawing 2 insane cards.
Jackson Cunningham in his first ever Pro Tour.
So I like Smiter just directly at Pierre and then Experiment 1 at Xenagos here. So I think that forces the right blocks.
Why is that?
If you attack Xenagos with both, I think at that point Pierre could just no blocks, basically get a turn off.
Right.
And if you attack Pierre with both, then you get to chump Smiter and just take 3. But if you attack the other way, then you have to chump the Experiment 1 or lose Xenagos and you take a hit for 8.
That sounds like what he's done here.
Suddenly the power of the green-white is being unleashed here in Portland.
I actually don't know what Pierre can draw that really gets him out of this, considering there's an Advent, it's crashing onto the battlefield in a second here.
Well, that looks like Chandra Pyromaster.
That's not a bad one. That's a start, because Chandra into a removal spell is better than drawing just a removal spell, except that the removal spell doesn't get to get played at instant speed, essentially. And now Pierre has to figure out the way to tap his mana to cast the maximal number of spells in his deck.
Chandra.
There she is.
Yeah.
0.
Yeah.
Says 0.
It's a Putrefy.
Yep.
Putrefy's nice.
He can play that this turn.
Yeah, Pierre is not dead. He can now putrefy the Experiment 1. And then chump the Loxodon Smiter. If you putrefy the Smiter, you end up getting attacked by Boon Satyr and Experiment 1. That's less good for you. So I think you want to just putrefy the Experiment 1 here.
There you go.
One card.
It can't be regenerated. That's correct. It can't be regenerated.
So end of turn Advent is good, but with Pierre at 6, he can chump Smiter, go to 1. Of course, the Advent can come over and kill Xenagos instead, considering that Pierre is not going to die this turn. So Pierre's still in rough shape, but Chandra into removal spell is actually the kind of when you need to get started back on the path to victory.
We have an Advent of the Worm token. We've been waiting for it to come down since the opening hand. Jackson Cunningham, 16-6 ahead.
And,
Oh, well,
and
interesting.
And there we have it.
Yeah, you hear a little bit of a murmur.
Unless they're just drawing something ridiculous.
A Johnny Caller of the Pride is exactly what Jackson wanted to see there.
Yeah. Exactly not the crowd reaction Pierre Mondon wanted to hear.
Yeah. I mean, he was already in rough shape, but Johnny At this point, Jackson can't be worried about a removal spell in Pierre's hand. He would have played it, many turns before.
So you're saying 16ing him would be good?
Yeah, that'd probably be pretty good.
Here is a Johnny Caller of the Pride.
Okay. I'm gonna give this guy flying double strike.
I'm going to give this flying and double strike until end of turn. And that could well be the end of match. There's the handshake. Jackson Cunningham of Canada in his first Pro Tour is going to play every single round that we could throw at him, because he will be back to face off against Ivan Flock of the Slovak Republic in the final. Jackson Cunningham through to the final.